Este programa tem o patrocínio North Avenue Bakery, Hotel Praia Sol, Luís Firmino Insurance, MCM Clinic, Top Burger, Go Car Service, Coimbra Restaurant. Olá, caros amigos, muito boa tarde, bem-vindos a mais um Legal Way. É sempre um prazer estar na vossa companhia e vamos falar de imigração porque é um tópico que, por certo, apaixona tudo e todos e que nos traz preocupados. Basta simplesmente olhar para as ruas das nossas cidades, basta simplesmente ver o impacto que muitas ações têm no dia-a-dia das pessoas. It is with a great pleasure that I'm welcome once again Dr. George Russo. Doctor, thank you for being here. Let's talk about immigration. There's so many to talk about. The things are getting difficult.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, things are certainly stepping up that you wouldn't see typically on maybe your national news broadcasts, but here at the local level, we can certainly see the impact of what's going on, especially on local news channels such as this one. ICE has, for the month of July, there are reports that ICE has made a record number of arrests. They're stepping up their enforcement in various ways. They're on the streets, they're in airports, and they're exercising every method that they can in order to ramp up their numbers and meet quotas.
That's something that we are observing day by day. As I mentioned before, just look at the streets of Newark, for example, and we see the difference. Now, let's try to cover the majority of things here. Last weekend, a detainee at Delaney Hall passed away. It was the second in a few months. What do we know about that so far?
Well, not too much because the government hasn't, or at least from what I've seen, the government hasn't quite shared the autopsy report and their internal medical records. But this individual was, I believe, in his early 40s, a Salvadoran national. He was at Delaney Hall. His family says that he had conditions including epilepsy and that he wasn't provided with medical treatment, and that lack of treatment caused him to pass away, and he passed away at University Hospital here in Newark. And there have been congressional investigations. New Jersey state investigators have been out to Delaney Hall. Even local religious leaders, such as the Cardinal here in Newark, have called for more transparency. But for the people, I guess what you need to know is that you have rights even when you're in a place like Delaney Hall. You have the right to medical treatment, you have the right to a lawyer, and you shouldn't take no for an answer. And if you're in a situation like this, your friends, family, whoever cares for you should be able to reach out to a lawyer and help protect your rights.
That is something extremely important. Make sure that you know your rights. And I have the first question here from someone. We're going to go back to a lot of topics that we want to talk about, but Doctor, someone is telling us here that was approached by a nice agent that asked them specifically this. You look like a person that we are looking for. Can I see your drive license or your ID? Is that something that someone can do? And what is the best approach from that person? Should that person deny to the agent the drive license or the identification?
Well, you definitely do not want to provide false information. They need reasonable suspicion in order to stop you, right? They can't just pull you over. There's a difference between being in a car and being approached on the street, right?
That was approached on the street.
Okay. So if you're approached on the street, officers typically need what's called a reasonable suspicion in order to stop, and reasonable suspicion that allows them to investigate. Okay, so one thing you can do is you can exercise your right to remain silent. Okay, you don't have to provide information about your immigration status, where you were born, or what you're doing, like in the United States. Okay, so you need to be aware of those rights, and you also have the right to remain silent. You can ask the officer, am I free to go? Okay, you can ask, am I under arrest? If they say you're not free to go, you can say, I'm exercising my right to remain silent.
Okay, and what happened at that time? That can be taken custody, or do that person are able to ask to contact a lawyer? What is the correct way to handle that situation? Because, you know, we've been getting reports of a lot of situations today where I have someone telling me that one of their neighbors is being, and that is, I'm reading what the person just wrote here, discriminated based on my appearance as a Latino.
Right.
They approach that person. So, you know, if an ICE agent approach someone just because they look Latino or Portuguese or Afro-American, whatever you want to call in that particular situation, can that person exercise the right to ask, I want a lawyer here?
Well, yes, you can always exercise that right. You can always exercise that right. Unfortunately, when you're in an open space, as opposed to if you're inside your own home or inside like a business or a private establishment, there's not as much that you can do, right? You certainly shouldn't turn around and run, right? Yeah, I mean, they're going to conduct their investigation. You also do not have to consent to a search of your phone or your body. They're going to conduct their investigation, and that if they make steps that are against the law and violate someone's Fourth or Fifth Amendment rights, then you're going to have to deal with that, unfortunately, after the fact. But, I mean, you can't run from them. You can't run. If they're talking to you, and you can say, am I free to go? And make a record of it, because a lot of them wear body-worn cameras.
Correct.
Right? So a lot of times what you're saying is being recorded, and there's access to that.
Correto. Só fica aqui, portanto, a clarificação. Não fuja, não corra de um agente ICE. Pergunte-lhe sim se pode começar, pode ir-se embora, se não há nada, e exercite esse direito, porque normalmente as conversas estão a ser gravadas pela câmara do agente. Doctor, another question that we have from an agent, from someone is, an ICE agent knocks the door and someone come to the window, they see there is someone inside the house. Do that person needs to open the door or not? We're talking about a specific area. Does the ICE agent needs to provide an ordinance to be able to get into that person's house?
So if ICE comes to your door, you have a lot more rights there than you would out on the street, okay? ICE does not have the right to enter your home without a warrant signed by a judge, not an administrative warrant. So if ICE is knocking on your door, and I would ask them to identify themselves, and then say, if you have a warrant, please slide that warrant under the door. Then look on that warrant and make sure that on the bottom it says that it's been signed by a judge, not by some type of ICE supervisory agent. Okay, it needs to be signed by a judge. And a lot of times they will not have this type of warrant. So you do not have to open your door.
To fly to Texas, they are here in an expired visa, so they overstay their visa. Does that person will take a chance if they fly to Texas today?
Yeah. A few months ago, my answer would have been different. but we're seeing a lot of reports now of ICE being around. We always knew that ICE was, or CBP specifically, was at the airport and monitoring international flights, of course, right? But now we're seeing reports of ICE being in the airport and pulling people over when their visas are lapsed. So if you're here on a for instance, a student visa, and you've applied for a green card, but now you have a gap in between that student visa lapsing, or it could be a TN visa for Canadians and Mexicans, or it could be any other type of visa that might come with an expiration date. For example, a tourist visa. If you've on a tourist visa and it's expired, and even if you've applied for a green card and that green card hasn't been approved yet, they can still, or DACA, they could still get you during that lapsed period. So I would be extremely careful about flying to Texas right now. I don't want to say don't go, but maybe drive or.
Correct. So basically, we can say there is a reinforcement as far as that. Now, how come ICE agents have access to those records?
Right. So there was a program called TSA Secure Flight that was created. This is a post 9/11 creation created during the George W. Bush administration that allowed for screening of passengers ahead of time. And they've gotten access to passenger manifests of people when you book a flight online. They've gotten access to these passenger manifests, and they are now sharing that data with ICE. So if you book a flight and they run your name through their database, they could be there waiting for you. They could.
So fica aqui, portanto, a clarificação. O acesso a esse formulário, a essa database, pode levar a que haja uma identificação exata do seu nome que vai para os records dos agentes do ICE, e por isso mesmo essa identificação pode ser feita. Doctor, I have a question for you. Someone that applied for, they submit the paperwork throughout an attorney. That happens to be a fake attorney. There was not an attorney, someone that was operating as an attorney. That person put a case throughout immigration, and they provide a record from a police report stating there was a crime. So that person, someone committed a crime against that person. Is that person ever can become legal based on that?
Well, that's a difficult situation, and there has been abuse as far as those types of applications that have been submitted. And anything that you've filed with immigration that you've signed can be used against you at a future proceeding, whether that be in front of USCIS, if you're going for a green card or citizenship, or in front of an immigration judge. So anything that you signed can be used against you. And what I would do is if you don't have a copy of the papers, I would speak to a lawyer, and maybe they can do a request to get a copy of everything that was submitted, and you can see how that might impact your case moving forward.
Correto. Fica aqui, portanto, a informação. Procure uma opinião de alguém que a possa ajudar, neste caso um advogado, porque tudo aquilo que submete num processo de imigração pode ser utilizado contra si próprio, já que a sua assinatura representa um agreement, você concordou com aquilo que está no papel. Volto a referir, o Dr. George Russo está localizado no 48 da Wilson Avenue, número de telefone 973-344-9120. Doctor, talking about someone that was deported, returned to the United States, submit an asylum case that was granted, just because that person was deported before, can the immigration or can the ICE agents deport that person again, even if they have an asylum case approved?
Well, define asylum approved.
So they submit the paperwork. They got the work authorization. They got the social security number. They are waiting.
But a
for-
judge approved their asylum?
Well, they're still waiting for their approval. So they got the first step, I guess, when you submit the asylum case, they granted you
Right.
the legal
People-
authorization to work. Right?
Yes, yes.
And that could be the
Yeah.
tricky part, right?
You have to know specifically where you're at, right? So after 150 days, someone who's filed for asylum is eligible to apply for work authorization. A pending asylum claim does not provide you with any protection from deportation.
Okay.
That asylum still needs to be approved by an immigration judge. So that person should know exactly where they're at before they do anything.
Correct. How long can take it? So after 150 days, that person can say that the lawyer submit the paperwork, they got the working permit, they got the social security number, and they are waiting for a court date now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would assume that person does not have an approved asylum yet,
Okay.
and that they can't be deported. They can't be deported until a judge orders them deported, right?
But can be detained?
They can be detained.
So is that fair to say that, because I guess that is the question and the person is not giving me all the details. A person that are in that particular situation with the asylum situation, if he's approached by an ICE agent, can be detained even if they're waiting for a judge determination on their case. But to be deported, they need to get that signed by a judge.
Right.
Só fica aqui, portanto, a clarificação. Continua aos olhos de um agente da imigração em situação ilegal, mas por essa razão é que tem que ser detido e depois só pode ser deportado mediante a autorização de um advogado, de um juiz de imigração. Doctor, that is one of the reasons why the detained centers are so overcrowded?
What is just the
Situations like that, the
Of
one
course,
that is
yeah.
described.
The quotas.
Yes.
They're also they're looking for anything to improve their quotas. One of the things that they're doing that's particularly nasty is they're giving people who get their initial document with their immigration charges against them, which is called a notice to appear, that lists your immigration violations. You might have a date for 2028, 2029. One of the things they're doing is they're sending you a letter in the mail that says your court date has been moved up to next week.
So one day to the other, basically.
People, I know firsthand that some people are getting notice of less than a week. Like, you have to appear in court in 1 week. And if they don't appear in court, or if they might have moved their address and the court doesn't have and they haven't updated their address to the court, they get an in absentia removal order, which is really bad for their case, right? Yeah, and it's just, they're just moving things up as fast as possible, especially on people who have pending asylum cases.
So basically, to meet their numbers, to meet their quota, everything is possible. And for example, a court date that was supposed to be in 2027, 28 can be changed to a sooner date. And what a person can do in that case? Can they try to reschedule that? Is any way that an attorney can work a case like that, or that person? What are the steps that should be taken to prevent that person to see their case analyzed one day to the other?
It depends very much on what type of relief they might have before the court. Especially if it's a first appearance, you can ask for more time to find a lawyer. and typically they'll give you one more court appearance to do that. Then you can also, there's also different motions that can be filed, such as a motion for a continuance, but you need to have a good basis in order to get that continuance. Stuff like that.
Doctor, I have a question from someone here. Is that a database based on the CBP? Someone is asking that based on that CBP database, does the ICE agents know where, for example, potential criminals are located based on the address that these people provided? Because it seems that if, and this is a comment that someone is making here, seems that if it's so many people that are criminal here, why so many people that is working try to make their life and the day by day being deported, and we don't heard so many cases related to the people that really should be deported. I guess that is the question that person tried to ask me.
Yeah, that's a good question. So as far as, there's a lot of databases out there. And they're certainly using all of their technology to scan as many of them as they can. But a lot of criminal offenses in the United States are prosecuted at the state level. For example, the state of New Jersey, right? New Jersey's state police maintains the criminal records for anyone that's been convicted of a crime here in New Jersey. Now the feds don't necessarily have access to all of that information if it was a past crime, right? But if you're encountered by immigration and they scan your fingerprints or do their biometrics on you, they can then run a scan and determine if you have an arrest in a state like New Jersey, right? And then they produce a document that's called an I-213 that will list exactly what happened there. It'll list how they approached you and the basis for detaining you, and if you have a criminal history, that'll be listed there too.
So I guess that now we can understand the situation with the sanctuary cities, right? So basically providing the information or making an arrest to be able to access the information.
Right, right, yeah, it's similar to that, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have someone, DACA case, few weeks ago the paperwork was returned because the signature doesn't match. I believe there is two signatures, or one signature from one document doesn't match with the other document. What can happen to that person right now? Do they need to pay again that fee, or what are the correct steps to preventing first to pay the second time for the same renewal, and what can happen to that person between the time frame, because they're going to be out of legal status for some time now?
So USCIS will only accept another application without a fee if you can prove that it was them who made a mistake, right? So if there was a signature mistake, you're probably going to have to pay it again, and I would fill that out as soon as possible, just to get your DACA renewal back in there, because DACA renewals now are taking like 5 to 6 months sometimes, just because of, and it's causing a lot of people problems. Like DACA people, some of them are in their early 40s now, like have important jobs, and you know they fall out of status, and some of them, they don't want to have that period where they're working unlawfully. I mean, there are things you can do. You can try an expedite request if you filed it. USCIS's own regulations say that an expedite request has to be more than just loss of a job. There has to be something a little more than that.
So this person is telling me that they need to provide now a 9-9, but you know, if she's out of status, she will not be able to provide it, right?
Right.
How that works between the two applications, if that happens? Is there any way that she can speak with HR at their company to explain the situation? Is that workable or not? Is a big company, it's not a big company here in Newark, by the way.
Yeah. Well, the most important thing is that you don't want to submit any false information on a document, on a government document.
Okay.
Because that all can complicate your situation more. An I-9, that's not an immigration document. That's more for working, legal
Correct.
authorization working, right? So you definitely want to make sure that's filled out right, and you definitely do not want to put false information on that because that can come back to haunt you in the future.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that you understand English, so you understood exactly what the doctor just mentioned. Make sure that all information that you provide are correct. There is no false information that can be used against your case. Para todos aí em casa, volto a referir uma vez mais, o Dr. Jorge Russo está localizado no 48 Wilson Avenue, 973-344-9120. Doctor, what we can expect? You know, you see last month record detentions. We see just as go through social media, you know, ICE reporting throughout the state, here in Jersey, New York, other states. What we can expect on the upcoming weeks?
Well, you can expect more ICE activity out on the streets. You can expect them to be combing through different databases and using all of the technology that's available to them. One of the things that has been an issue is ICE is buying cell phone data from companies.
That's someone asking about that.
Yeah, so I recently posted about this on my Instagram, but ICE is buying databases from certain companies that allows them to buy personal information. And they're doing this without a warrant, because at least for right now, they don't need one. And it's allowing them to gain location information. So there are things that you can do in order to reduce the risk of your information being caught up in that. One of the things that you can do is that if you have an iPhone, you can go to the settings, go to security and privacy, and then there's a tab there that says ad tracking. You can turn off your ad tracking so that you don't share your information with a lot of applications that you have. For example, things that might get caught up are like free game applications, free weather apps. If you use a free VPN in order to, you know, mask your IP, stuff like that. The other thing that you can do is you can turn off your location sharing on non-essential apps.
Ok, são muito importantes, portanto, os agentes de imigração podem comprar informação de companhias de telefone onde a sua informação pessoal está disponível e, por exemplo, a sua localização pode ser facilmente identificável, mas há medidas que você pode tomar no seu aparelho de celular para evitar essa situação. Doctor, I have someone asking here that that person being detained here in Delany Hall, and when got there, he has cancer. So he provides all the information, was able to sign paperwork for out of deportation, and was released to the streets. He's going to be living in 30 days, less than 30 days. Is that a normal situation?
What do you mean released to the street and is going to be leaving in 30 days?
He's no longer detained. So he was caught here on Monroe Street. He gave me all the information, I guess, that he doesn't care anymore. He was taken to Delany Hall. There he made the agents aware of their cancer condition. Some paperwork was provided. That person, he signed, since he was thinking to leave to Portugal, he's a Portuguese national. He signed out of deportation and was provided with some time, 30 days, to leave the country.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean...
Is that a normal situation?
Yeah, it's not necessarily normal. In a lot of situations, when you take a voluntary departure or something like that from jail, they will drive you to the airport. Like, you'll have to have your family or whoever buy your plane ticket to your country, and then they'll want you to turn over proof that you bought that plane ticket to the ICE field office,
Okay.
and then they'll coordinate it. But in his case, I'm assuming they made an exception, right? Just when you can produce that kind of document. And that he'll have to leave within inside those 30 days, otherwise that order becomes a final removal order.
Okay, so basically I guess that what this person tried to say is now that he signed that out of deportation, they must go, correct? Is
Right.
No. Now, is the ICE still paying people to auto-deported? Still any reports on that? Like the $2,000, $1,000, I do not recall exactly how much was.
Well,
People that wants to auto-deport it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that offer is still available. I personally don't know anyone that's received money from them, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't happened, so I really can't say. But if you are going to do something like that, I would speak to a lawyer before doing anything like that, because if you do fill out your information and give it to them, now they know where you are, and
Correct.
yeah.
Doctor, very difficult times that we are facing. I need few advice from you before we go. I know that you have some more topics. You want to go through them?
Well, you want to conclude then?
No,
Just to
no.
conclude?
You can tell. You can tell me. No, if there's any topics that you think that we should talk. We still have time.
Well, I think we covered most of it. Let me see. Down up. I think we covered it all.
We covered. That's
We
good.
covered it all.
Good.
All the main issues.
I like to some advice for the people out there that's still debating with this increased ICE activity throughout our towns. Difficult times, still some hope.
Right.
What do you think that's going to happen on the upcoming months throughout this immigration situation?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely still some hope. I wouldn't give up hope. I know that some people have, but every situation is different, and the most important thing that you can do is that you can know your rights, as we talked about in our first segment. Like, you have rights. So just to be a little bit more precise about the rights, like being approached on the street. For example, I've already said the main right that you have is the right to remain silent. All right. Now, if you're just approached on the street by ICE, like racially profiled or whatever, they say that you're looking for someone. Now, different people have different rights. Okay. There is a federal statute that requires people to do certain things. There's no federal law that says everyone has to carry ID on them at all times. But people who don't, like if you have a green card and you have citizenship, it might make sense in that situation to turn over your ID, right? But if you don't have any status, the most important thing that you can do is remain silent and do not turn over any foreign document to them, right? Like if you have a driver's license from another country, don't turn that over. If you're walking with your passport, don't turn that over, all right? You just need to know your rights and then put yourself in the best position to get through these times.
Thank you, Doctor. Once again, Dr. George Russo is located at 48 Wilson Avenue, 973-344-9120. Doctor, thank you very much for your time once again.
My pleasure.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
E você em casa, a esperança continua bem viva. Em tempos de dificuldade é quando a resiliência das pessoas fazem a diferença. Cada caso é um caso e esteja informado. Contacte um advogado, tenha a certeza que toda a informação que você precisa está ao seu dispor para que as decisões possam ser tomadas de forma convincente e conveniente. Tenham um ótimo dia.